The phone rang in the dead of night. I shot up in bed, head spinning, heart pounding like the bass drum at a Knicks game in Madison Square Garden. CEO, direct line. The red letters on the screen suck the air right out of my lungs. My name's Ethan Miles, 36, North American Creative Director at Stratacore, the digital advertising giant that could swing entire markets with a single campaign. I was the mind behind Phoenix Rebirth, the campaign that raked in $200 million and catapulted Stratacore to the top, leaving both East Coast rivals and Silicon Valley scrambling in the dust. But none of that meant a damn thing right now. Ethan, get to the office, now. The CEO's voice was colder than ice, slicing straight through me before I could even ask. It's 2 a.m. What? No time. There's a data breach about to blow up. You need to be here before the media storms in. I flung the phone onto the bed, yanked on an old black coat and my beat-up Converse. Outside, New York still blazed with lights, but for me, everything turned into a blurry, suffocating mess. The cab door slammed shut behind me. I pressed my forehead against the window, rain misting the glass and sliding down like quicksilver. I tried to block out the image of Max. Max, the guy who took the fall for me in the Skyline Ignite server crash. He'd stood before the board, shouldering the blame so I wouldn't lose my job. That night, he sat with me till 4 a.m., scrubbing slides, pounding Red Bulls like water, never complaining once. But these past months, Max avoided my eyes in the hall. Secret internal meetings, emails that vanished, a suspicious dinner with the CFO. I kept telling myself, Max would never betray me. But if that were true, why the hell was the CEO calling me now? Stratacore's headquarters loomed on Fifth Avenue, a silent monolith slicing into the sky. I sprinted through the lobby. The security guard barely lifted his head, just gave a curt nod. The elevator crawled to the 51st floor, each breath in my chest growing heavier. The CEO's door stood ajar. The desk lamp glowed dim and yellow. Cigarette smoke coiled through the air like a serpent, curling around everything, suffocating. He sat there, slicked back silver hair, those dead blue eyes fixed on me. Sit. I swallowed hard and sank into the icy leather chair. He slid a thick file across the table. I'm not going to beat around the bush. You've heard about the global creative director role? I nodded, throat dry as sand. That chair gives you the power to shape the entire digital advertising landscape. It's the dream you've been chasing all your life, isn't it? I clenched my fists. Since day one, I'd dreamed of defining pop culture campaigns coast to coast, steering every big brand from LA to London. I want you in that chair. But he wasn't done. He tapped the file. First, you need to clean this up. I flipped it open. Every page stabbed me deeper than the last. Emails, internal notes, financial breakdowns, equity deals with some overseas conglomerate. Max, his name in every critical line. I remembered Boston, Max kneeling before the board, taking the blame for me. That forced smile when I got the praise and he faded into the shadows. And now, it all crashed down. You want me to betray Max? My voice was raw, dragged across gravel. The CEO leaned back, exhaling smoke. I want you to take this evidence to the board. You'll save Stratacore and claim the seat. You deserve it. You're the only one with the guts and vision to clean house. I stared at an old photo on his desk. Max with his arm around me, both of us grinning like kids after Phoenix Rebirth. I shut up, flinging the file onto the desk. Why me? Why not compliance? He stared me down, eyes flat and empty. Because you owe Stratacore. Without us, Skyline Ignite would have buried you. You don't just owe me, you owe this entire industry. And more importantly, I know you won't let emotions cloud your logic. A vein pulsed at my temple, throbbing like a ticking bomb. I wanted to run, but that chair, that ultimate power, pounded in my head like a war drum. Outside, New York blinked in neon, either cheering me on or laughing at my cowardice. "You've got 1 week," he stood, pointing at the door. I backed away, mind blank, my shirt plastered to my back with sweat. 1 week to decide. Sell out the man who saved my career, or walk away from the only dream I'd ever had. I clenched my fists, my heart beat a hammer against my ribs. Max, the chair, honor, it all tangled into a single knot, choking me from the inside out. And a single question echoed, relentless. If I stab Max in the back, would I ever be able to live with myself? I dragged myself out of Stratacor's lobby, each breath heavy like I was hauling sandbags on my shoulders. New York still gleamed under the midnight sky, yellow cabs slicing through the streets like sharks gliding across a dark ocean of asphalt. But in my mind, everything had gone dark. I got back to my 24th floor studio in Chelsea around 4 a.m. I tossed my coat onto a chair and collapsed onto the floor, my face pressed against the cold tiles. Eyes shut tight, but the memories of Max stabbed at me relentlessly. Max, the man I always called my ride-or-die brother. I still remember winter 2015. I'd just been promoted to lead the Skyline Ignite campaign, my first fully independent project. But 3 days before launch, the server crashed. All data gone, investors furious, and I was seconds away from being crucified at an emergency board meeting. Max stepped up and took the blame for the technical failure, even though he had nothing to do with it. I can still hear his strained laugh after that meeting. "Don't thank me, just come up with a damn good new idea. I've gotten used to taking the fall." That night, we stayed at the office till sunrise. Max kept the coffee flowing, combed through every line of copy with me, rebuilt the entire plan in just 48 hours. The campaign turned into an unexpected triumph. Skyline Ignite became my first big explosion, paving the way for Phoenix Rebirth and dozens of million-dollar deals afterward. For the past 7 years, Max was the shield that took every arrow, while I got to fly free and create. We called ourselves the Invincible Team. But now, replaying everything, the details shattered like a glass pane. Recently, Max started lying about internal meetings, those accidental run-ins with CFO Lucas, the late nights at the office with no messages. Once, I walked into a meeting early and saw Max and Lucas slam their laptops shut. Max just laughed, patting me on the shoulder. "You're early, Ethan. It's fine, just budget stuff." I forced a smile, but my gut twisted into knots. I told myself then, I'm just being paranoid. But last week, prepping my keynote for the Global Creative Summit, I discovered a confidential analytics report had been sent to Neptune Group in Europe, a report only Max and I had access to. I confronted Max right there in the hallway. He looked me straight in the eyes, unblinking, then laughed. "You think I did that? Ethan, you're exhausted. Take a few days off." That answer, it was like a punch straight to my sternum. I remember his eyes, calm, glassy, like a still lake, not a shred of the brother who once shielded me from the bullets. Tonight, the CEO's file tore open every last illusion. I shot up, threw my phone onto the couch, and opened the liquor cabinet. The bourbon bottle was half empty. I chugged it straight from the bottle, burning my throat, but it did nothing for the cold gnawing at my chest. Sometimes I wondered, was Max forced into this, or did ambition rot him from the inside out? A part of me wanted to believe Max had been cornered, manipulated. But those emails, Those cold-blooded profit promises, those numbers, they left no room for excuses. I scrolled through old messages between us, promises like no one gets left behind and we shoulder everything together. They read like sick jokes now. Yet one thing stopped me from striking back immediately. If Max once saved me, did I have any right to drag him before the board and rip him apart? Or was I just lying to myself, afraid to lose the dream of that global creative director chair? My hand gripped the bourbon glass so tight my fingertips turned white. I set it down, exhaling shakily. The smell of booze clung to my shirt, sharp and bitter. The city lights kept flickering beyond the window. Manhattan never sleeps, but tonight felt endless. If I stayed silent, Max would keep bleeding Stratocore dry, pushing it toward ruin. But if I exposed him, I'd crush 7 years of brotherhood and become a backstabber in my own eyes. I stood and stared at myself in the mirror. Dark circles, patchy stubble, a hollow stare that didn't look like mine anymore. I whispered to the reflection, "Who the hell are you, Ethan? A power-hungry coward or a fool clinging to blind loyalty?" That question buzzed around in my head like a swarm of wasps. No way out. That night, I lay motionless on the cold wooden floor. Outside, ambulance sirens wailed. Police horns pierced the night. But inside me, only one question kept echoing. Was Max the one who betrayed me? Or was I the one betraying myself? I woke up to a harsh beam of sunlight slicing through the blinds. My head felt like it was weighed down by concrete blocks. My mouth dry and bitter, the taste of bourbon still clinging to my tongue. I stumbled into the kitchen, brewed a cup of black coffee, and watched each slow drip like a ticking clock. But inside me, waves of something nameless kept crashing, relentless and wild. The phone rang. "Max." I froze. It rang again and again. I waited until the third ring before picking up. "Ethan, make sure you show up to the rooftop party tonight. It's important." Max's voice was calm, casual, like nothing had ever happened. I'll be there." I hung up, my hand trembling. That evening I slipped into a gray suit, tied a black tie. My reflection in the mirror looked foreign, stiff, lifeless, like a wax figure. The rooftop was on the 60th floor of the Lumiere Hotel, overlooking New York's glittering maze of lights. Upstairs, French wine lined the bar, candles flickered, and delicate crystal glasses gleamed under the chandeliers. I stepped in, jazz music floating in the air. Creative directors, partners, investors, they all stood around in crisp suits, polished smiles, eyes slicing through each other like scalpels. Max stepped onto the small stage, black suit, red tie. His eyes shone, radiating unshakable confidence. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I'd like to share some very special news." The entire room went silent. My wine glass tilted in my hand, nearly spilling. "Our newest project, Genesis, will move forward under my name, Max Harrison, and I will officially take on the role of lead creative director, representing Stratocore." I heard every word, each syllable slicing down my spine. Genesis, the idea Max and I had scribbled on a napkin at 2 a.m., cold pizza on the table. I had vowed to protect it until it was ready to transform the entire advertising landscape. And now, there he was, basking in camera flashes, applause, and cheers. I squeezed my glass so hard I felt shards digging into my palm. Blood seeped out, staining the white napkin deep red. Max looked at me. Just for a second, his gaze passed over mine, calm, almost serene. Then he smiled faintly and nodded, like a silent goodbye. I retreated into a dark corner, inhaling deeply. The mix of perfume, wine, and my own blood turned into a metallic stench. My mind flashed to that file from last night. In that chaotic midnight haze, I had hesitated. But now, every doubt evaporated. I knew exactly what I had to do. I left the party early, blood still dripping into my palm. I jumped into a cab straight home. On the way, a text from the CEO popped up. "You saw it, didn't you? A man like that doesn't deserve to stand beside you." I didn't reply. My eyes locked on the screen, jaw clenched tight. Back home, I tossed my jacket, washed the blood off. The water roared in the sink, but my mind was sharp, more focused than ever. I pulled out the file, opened my laptop, plugged in a USB drive, copied every piece of evidence. The secret recording of Max and Lucas's meeting, the emails promising equity shares to Neptune, the forged financial reports meant to deceive the board. I remembered that night after Skyline Ignite when Max said, "As long as you keep your seat, I'll take all the bullets." Now, he was using every ounce of applause to push me off the edge. I grabbed my phone and texted the CEO. "I'll meet with the board tomorrow morning. I want to finish this myself." I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair. Tonight, New York had gone oddly quiet. No sirens, no horns, just the steady thud of my own pulse pounding in my ears. My hands still shook, but not out of fear this time. Tomorrow, I wouldn't just be striking down Max. I'd be tearing apart 7 years of brotherhood, slicing through the last thread of trust I had left. And after that, I'd have to face myself. Outside, Manhattan shimmered like a deck of cards being turned over one by one. I wondered, tomorrow, when it's all over, would I still be able to look in the mirror without despising what I saw? I woke up at 4 a.m., my head pounding like a sledgehammer crashing into my skull. I sat there in the chair, staring at the files scattered across the table. Streetlights bled through the blinds, casting broken shadows across the papers and over the dried blood from the night before. I washed my face, caught my reflection in the mirror. Bloodshot eyes, uneven stubble, a face that felt both foreign and painfully familiar. First step, double-check everything. The recordings, the emails, the financial spreadsheets. Every file encrypted, saved onto 3 separate USB drives. One locked in my home safe, one uploaded to the cloud, and the last one tucked inside the pocket of the coat I'd wear to the board meeting. I carefully built the slide deck. No flashy graphics, no colors, just the raw truth, sharp and naked, like a blade pressed straight into Max's chest. At 6 a.m., I stopped by a corner cafe and ordered a strong black espresso. The blonde barista with a nose ring smiled at me. "You look like you just got back from a battlefield." I gave a small nod. "You could say that." For a fleeting moment, I remembered all the nights Max and I sat in this same cafe, rain hammering the windows, sharing a soggy sandwich, sketching out wild ideas we thought would transform the ad world. But those memories now felt like a frayed rope, ready to snap at any second. I paid, took my coffee, and stepped into the cold morning air. The wind slapped my face, sharp as a slap across the cheek. I wondered, if Max found out, what would he do? Deny everything, shred the evidence, or admit it all and vanish from New York forever? Part of me was terrified. Part of me secretly hoped he'd confess, fall to his knees in front of the board, so I wouldn't have to stab him myself. But I knew that man wasn't Max anymore. I got to the office early. The lobby was empty except for the hum of a vacuum and the sharp smell of floor cleaner. I pulled out the USB drive, gripping it like a talisman. Inside the boardroom, chairs were arranged in a U-shape, glass walls revealing the Hudson glowing orange under the morning sky. I plugged in the USB, my fingers shaking. The first slide appeared. Truth before titles. I sat there, practicing deep breaths. remembering the CEO's words, "You only get one shot. If Max catches on, he'll destroy everything." The door creaked open. Max walked in, light gray suit, red tie, wearing that confident, almost smug smile. Lucas, the CFO, trailed behind him. Max stopped dead when he saw me. His eyes shifted, surprise, then cold calculation, then back to that smooth, unreadable calm. "Ethan, you're not on today's agenda. What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I just stared right through him. Lucas glanced nervously at Max, then backed into his chair. The board members began trickling in, major stakeholders, the CEO, a few senior execs. The air turned heavy, like thick fog rolling off the Hudson. I stood up. My voice was hoarse but steady. "I'm not here to defend an idea today. I'm here to defend the truth." I hit the button. The slide changed, revealing Max's email to Neptune. A ripple of murmurs spread across the room. Max stood abruptly, eyes bulging. "Shut it off. This is fabricated." I advanced to the next slide. The recording played, Max's voice, smooth and damning. "Lucas, I just want my percentage. Dump the rest on Ethan. The board will think he's greedy. I'll come out clean." All eyes turned on Max. Lucas looked like he'd seen a ghost. Max lunged at me, trying to grab the laptop. I yanked it back, pain shooting through my wrist, but I didn't let go. Security stormed in. Max was pulled back, thrashing and screaming. "You bastard, I saved your ass so many times. You owe me your damn life." That last sentence, it slammed into me like a hammer to the chest. I stood frozen, sweat sliding down my spine. Every cell in my body wanted to collapse, but I didn't. The CEO rose, his voice heavy as stone. "The board will convene an emergency session immediately. Max Harrison, you're suspended from all positions, pending internal and legal investigation." Max was dragged out, his face ashen, his mouth still spitting curses. I watched him go, remembering those late nights, the pizza going cold, the shoulder pats meant to keep me standing. It was over. I stood there, staring at the global creative director chair, the only dream I'd carried for a decade. But my mind felt utterly blank. The CEO turned to me, his voice softer. "That chair, it's yours now, Ethan. You've proven you deserve it." I didn't answer. My hand dropped to my side, the faint sting of last night's cut still there. In that moment, I knew I had won, but I had also lost everything. And that old question came roaring back, sharper than ever. Could I still look at myself in the mirror and not despise the man staring back? The boardroom fell into a dead silence after Max was dragged out, so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my head. The CEO stepped forward, his hand landing on my shoulder. "Ethan, you're the only one with the guts and the talent. You deserve that global creative director chair." I looked at him, then shifted my gaze to the empty chair at the end of the table. That chair, the one I used to dream about every single night, the one I imagined myself in hundreds of times, sitting there with a confident smile, orchestrating every idea, every budget, every face in the industry. But now, that dream felt like a blood-soaked rag. I shook my head gently. "Thank you, but I can't take it." He frowned, surprised. "Why? Ethan, you've won." I turned to the glass wall, watching the Hudson flow quietly under the pale golden morning light. "I didn't come here to win," I said, voice low and slow. "I came here to end a lie. I can't sit in that chair when there's still blood on my hands." He tried to speak again, but I raised a hand to stop him. "I need to leave. I need to rebuild myself. I need to remember why I started in this business in the first place. I turned and walked out of the boardroom. Dozens of shareholders watched in silence, their stares heavy, like they were looking at a loser. But I didn't care. Down in the lobby, I pulled out my phone and called an old friend, Anna, a former colleague who now ran a small creative studio in Brooklyn. "Anna, I need a space," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "You'll always have a place here," she replied, no hesitation. A taxi pulled up outside. I got in and leaned my head against the window. The city blurred past in streaks of light, but for the first time, it didn't feel frantic or terrifying. In my head, Max's image still flickered, his genuine smile as he handed me that final slide, his hollow eyes as security dragged him out. I wondered, if I could go back to Skyline Ignite, would I still choose Max as my brother? Or had we been sliding off course from the very beginning? The taxi stopped at Anna's studio. A wooden sign read, "Hatch and Bloom," hand-painted letters tilting slightly under the sun. I stepped inside. The space was wide, filled with sketches and models, the smell of fresh paint and soft indie music echoing through the air. Anna ran up and hugged me. I collapsed into her arms, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let the tears fall without fighting them. "I need to start over," I whispered. "Then let's start," she answered, eyes lighting up. I stayed at the studio for weeks, telling no one. I cleaned wood scraps, sketched new ideas on the walls, and helped Anna map out storyboards for small brands we actually believed in. The day we signed our first contract with a small organic food brand in Brooklyn, I felt as light as when I first rollerbladed down the street at 15. No glory, no camera flashes, just the pure sense that I still had something to give. A text from the CEO came a month later. "The door is always open for you." I left it unread. 3 months later, I heard Max had been permanently banned from advertising, facing financial fraud charges. He vanished from the media, as if he'd never existed. A few more months passed, and Anna sent me our financial report. We broke even. But more importantly, I got to watch our small team genuinely smile. No schemes, no politics, no knives in the dark. One evening, I looked out the studio window, the city lights still dancing. I let out a laugh. I had lost a brother. I had lost a dream of power. But in the end, I found myself again. Max once said, "As long as you keep your seat, I'll take all the blame." Now I finally understood. What good is holding the seat if you lose your soul? I stood up, eyes drifting across the sketches crowding the wall. In the corner, a phrase I had scrawled late one night in thick black marker. "Truth before titles." It wasn't just the slide that exposed Max. It had become my guiding star for the rest of my life. Have you ever wondered, if you had to betray everything to gain it all, would you still recognize yourself afterward? If someone came to mind while reading this, share this story with them. Maybe, just maybe, they're standing at the edge of the biggest gamble of their life too.